Yes, I think Council clarify the affidavit she is referring to.
I will clarify to that. Sorry. My lady, I hope the time will be restored to me. My learned senior.
There is an error that was stated by my colleague, Professor Gidu Muigai. The ruling by this honorable court struck out the notice of appointment of Advocate Bahisa, not anything else. That is what I heard with my own ears.
If I may please interrupt you
Council,
yet again.
please, without wasting a lot of time, we are capable of discerning what we meant with our own ruling. Let her identify the affidavit she is referring to, and when you are responding, then you deal with the issues that you are raising.
We appreciate that, my Lady Chief Justice. But I think if we proceed beyond this point without a common understanding by all the advocates as to what was the consequence of striking out the notice of appearance, then many on this side may make reference to those documents filed by Issa Mansu. To my own understanding of the law, once the notice of appointment was struck out, all consequential filings based on that were null and void and expunged from the record.
Proceed.
My ladies and my lords, that issue can be put to rest very simply. The affidavit that I refer to by Irene Masit is drawn and filed by MS Ouma J and Associates Advocates. I believe each of the commissioners had a right and did appoint their own advocates in response to the petition. And that is what I am referring to. So Malanid Senior is lost on that one. If I may proceed now. My lady, I do refer to the affidavit now of Irene Masit at paragraph 26 of her affidavit, where she depones that the chairperson and the commission secretary and the CEO failed to ensure that due diligence was done on procurement, proofreading, and printing of ballot papers, which is also a process that takes place prior to the general elections, and which in turn affected the elections in the areas that we complain the election was cancelled. She lists it, and for time, I will not refer to them. The averment is that the error on which the IBC relies upon, or the chairperson relies upon, that led to the cancellation of the result, was one of willful neglect. Irene Masit further testifies that there was no meeting as was required to be before the procurement was done, or verification to ensure that they proofread what they had procured. And she also testifies that in practice in 2017, this had been done before to ensure that this mistake does not occur. My ladies and my lords, to the extent that that admission is made by a commissioner, we submit that we are supported or find corroboration to our complaint that the cancellation of the vote in the areas in which we have complained about was deliberate and not accidental. The fifth issue that I deal with was whether there were unexplainable discrepancies between the votes cast for the presidential candidates and other elective positions. This evidence is found in the affidavits of Celestine Anyango, I beg your pardon. My ladies and my lords, the evidence is found in the affidavit of Celestine Anyango, where she shows at paragraph 8, 9, 10, and 11, where she has produced evidence showing that in 8 counties, there was a discrepancy between the votes cast for the president, votes cast for the governor, votes cast for the senator, and votes cast for the woman representative. The total number of the votes discrepancy is 33,208. And my lady, it is at this point that I reiterate again the slim margin between the result declared for the first respondent, which is 69,000 votes, to attain the 50% plus 1 threshold. In response to the discrepancy of the votes that we have highlighted, the IBC's witnesses, Sunkuli, Moses Ledama Sunkuli, I believe, states that those discrepancies are accounted for by prison votes. because prisoners only vote for the presidential candidate. My ladies and my lord, if one looks at the total number of votes that have been provided as having been accounted to the prisoners, it is only 715 votes. You will find this at paragraph 53 of Sunkuli's affidavit. There is therefore no account for 32,493 votes. On that issue alone, we would like the court to consider, for instance, in Kirinyaga County, where the discrepancy between the presidential votes and the governor's votes was 23,550, which the only answer given by the respondents is that these were stray ballots. My ladies and my lords, a rough calculation of what is given as stray ballot for Kirinyaga County alone yields 33 stray ballots per polling station on average in Kirinyaga County, which we submit is not possible. This is also the kind of issue or discrepancy that, based on the rules, ought to have been brought to the attention of the National Tallying Center or the National Returning Officer. We rely also upon the authority cited in our submissions of William Kabogo, where the learned Justice Kimaru said a difference of over 5,000 votes between the parliamentary position and the presidential can only be as a result of fraud. My ladies and my lords, would also urge the court to note that at this election, the IBC had provided a clerk whose sole duty at the polling station was to ensure that voters placed their ballot papers in the right box. And therefore, the incidence of such a high number of stray or allegedly stray ballot papers cannot be explained and has not been explained. Finally, my ladies and my lords, as time is not on my side, we urge the court to look at the evidence of Arnold Ochieng Oginga on the discrepancies between the Forms 34A or the results declared in Forms 34A, Forms 34B, and Forms 34C. The design of the election was that this was to be a a seamless transaction, and therefore the Forms 34A and the results therein ought to be the same as the Forms 34B and ought to be the same as the Forms 34C. In his affidavit, Arnold Ochieng Oginga finds that there is a discrepancy in the results to the extent of over 180,000 votes. That affects the result of the election or the outcome of the election. I will stop at this particular point and invite my senior, Mr. Paul Mwangi, to continue.